Thank you, Harry. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. It's a great honour to be invited to come and speak at the Brooklands Museum. And a few weeks ago, I was very kindly invited to a motoring event, and I arrived on a 19th century Victorian penny farthing or ordinary high-wheel bicycle. Today, kindly my support team, I arrived in a modern 21st century Adventureholic vehicle with a flying car attached. You might have seen it on the way in. And do have a look around, both the flying car and the Adventureholic vehicle, which is available for hire, should you wish at some point in the future. But more about a flying car a little bit later. Many years ago, when I was young and foolish, I jumped into the back of a white Laughton van with no windows on an 18-hour journey all the way to northern Spain, to a town called Pamplona. And some of you may have been there, some of you may even have been to the San Fermin festival, which is where they run the bulls in Pamplona, through the cobbled streets. And lunatics from around the world and Spanish kind of get involved with this fiesta, running with the bulls. I knew not much about it, just jumped in this van with 5 friends, and we did an 18-hour journey all the way to northern Spain. It was a hell of a journey. Got there the following afternoon. What we should have done is gone to get a quick lime juice and some food, and then maybe an early night in a hotel. But we did none of that. In fact, we didn't have any accommodation booked, so we went straight to the bars. We had lots of sangria, Guinness, lots of wine, and so on and so forth. So much so that I woke up at 5 in the morning in somebody's back garden. And I went staggering around trying to find my mates, and I found one of them, Bob. His legs were sticking out of a bush, so I pulled the legs out. He had a rather strange silver streak up the side of his body, and as I scanned his body and ended up on his snoring face, I was rather perturbed, and he was too when he discovered it. There was a massive black slug right on the middle of his forehead. And that was our preparation for the running with the bulls in Pamplona. We staggered to the start line. A whistle blew at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you just heard this faint galloping of half-ton bulls heading towards you down the narrow streets with thousands of people shouting and screaming on the bollards on either side. And there I was facing these 12 bulls, and we'd had a pact with my mates. We said we'd look after each other, we wouldn't abandon each other, we'd face the fear of these bulls together. And as I stood there, the bulls heading towards me, towards the end of the room, I could smell them, I could feel them, the ground was shaking, and I looked around for my mates for moral support, and they all buggered off. I managed to do a couple of dogs and weaves, and then luckily ex-rugby player, so I did a few side steps and managed to miss the first few bulls, and then second wave of bulls came through. I wasn't quite so lucky. Yeah, I had a very close encounter with a Spanish bull as a young and foolish young man. But a few years later, I was a little older and, dare I say, a little wiser. And I thought I'd sort myself out and organise another mission with a bit more preparation. So this time it was an aspiration to go and see. I was curious to see what the North and the South Poles were like. So the Arctic polar regions was my target. Decided to go to the North Pole first. This is in the 1990s. And of course it's a moving sea of ice. And you basically have to pull your house, if you like, or your provisions in a sled, and it's a stunning environment, but quite tricky environment to walk through. But I loved it, just navigating through all the turmoil of the moving, shifting blocks and leads of ice, some of which would open up as you were crossing them, and you weren't quite sure whether this would hold you and your skis or whether you'd be going for a swim. Obviously quite chilly and quite dangerous. Ranulph Fiennes lost a load of his fingers by falling in and grabbing his kit for too long in the water to frostbite. So mistakes can be costly. But we eventually got to the North Pole, and I have this as Harry, very kind. Thank you for the invitation, Harry. Harry said, slightly bonkers and guilty as charged. I like to do something interesting when I get to these lovely, amazing, inspirational places on the planet. And so the North Pole was the scene of the world's first game of extreme golf. Yeah. So here we are at the North Pole, literally the North Geographic Pole, a couple of 100 meters away, and I've asked my team to bring a golf ball. Now, would you believe it? Going to the North Pole, and 2 out of 5 members brought white golf balls for this challenge. I mean, come on. Use some common sense. Anyway, they were eliminated pretty quickly, leaving 3 of us to battle it out, and being a rubbish golfer, I came last. But there we are. We'd hosted the world's most extreme northerly game of golf. Now, of course, the south is very different. It's a continent, Antarctica, and it's got amazing history, of course. We all know about Robert Falcon Scott and his slightly, sadly doomed expedition. But I love this photograph of the brave British men as they arrived 5 weeks late, i.e. Amundsen had got there before them. You can see the dejection in their faces. And this is just an iconic photograph as they prepared to make their way back to the relative safety of their ship, the Discovery, but of course they were never to make it. This was their mode of transport to get to Antarctica and then to escape it. But, there are some advantages of being a modern adventureholic or adventurer explorer these days, and so you just take a big jet, don't you? You guys know all about aviation and motor cars, so somebody will know what this aircraft is. Yeah. Illusion. Yeah. Piloted by two Russians, one of who's obligatory blind drunk. The other interesting thing is actually in Antarctica, ALE or Antarctic Logistics Company, they organise all these explorers to come to Antarctica. And this is a 4-mile blue ice runway. And so when this massive jet comes in, the pilots, if they can be sober enough, they just point it down the runway and they can't afford to touch the brakes. Because if they touch the brakes, the whole aircraft will slide. So it's a rolling 4-mile slowdown, which is quite interesting. And then the other thing is when you're halfway across to Antarctica, in sort of broken Russian English, the pilots go, "We've reached the point of no return," which I always think is great. You're committed to going to Antarctica. Anyway, just like Scott's Day, it's bloody cold, at least minus kind of 10 in the day and minus 30 at night. So your snot freezes, unfortunately. And of course, just like the old days, you do have to pull your sled with your kit in it as well. But, what an amazing place to go skiing, I'd say. Well, the campsite's a bit Spartan, and I've just put that as a reminder. The poo tent is slightly away from the camping sleeping tents. Just reminds me that the most popular question I ever get asked is, how do you go to the loo in minus 35, Harry? Don't know? Anybody know the answer? No, sir. Quickly. Thank you. Yeah. We got to the South Pole, the geographic South Pole, where there's a rather garish barber's pole and a even more garish sort of plastic globe on it, signifying the actual location of the geographic South Pole. But look at that, the date. It's exactly 100 years to the day that Scott had arrived, and that was actually planned. And guess what we were to do the following day? No guesses? Cricket? Pogo? Skateboarding? No, I decided to organise the world's first game of extreme cricket. I challenged, on behalf of us all, Great Britain mostly, a team against all other countries around the world that happened to be there celebrating the centenary, and there were quite a few. So I think we've got a Lithuanian batting, and obviously the British team fielding and bowling. And there was a few special rules. There was, we were in an extreme location, so there wasn't a boundary. Didn't have enough rope, obviously. So basically, you hit it, and you just have to keep running to keep warm. And everyone got to bat and everyone got to bowl, those sorts of things. So a few special rules. But anyway, after England's victory, thank you very much, by 2 wickets, the actual England cricket captain, Andrew Strauss, texted me, said congratulations. So that was something, wasn't it? Very nice. Nice thought. Being half Scottish, I always have to take a wee dram on my expeditions, no exceptions. And after the victory, little sunburnt as I spot my cheeks, it was time for a good few glugs of Scotland's finest whiskey. And unfortunately, obviously at 3,000 metres elevation at the South Pole, we ended up like this. And somebody nudged me and said, "You're on a live interview with BBC Breakfast in 20 minutes, Neil," and handed me a satellite phone. That didn't go too well, to be honest. It prompts me to say, ladies and gents, you obviously, I'm giving you a kind of an adventurous talk tonight, and let's discuss what is the definition of adventure. Anyone hazard a guess? Yeah, I'll buy that. Anything else? Doing something else. Yes, yeah. Not as good as your wife's there, but nearly. Anybody else? No, do you want me to prompt you?
Hardship and discomfort relived in leisure.
Well, that sounds a bit hardcore to me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm buying into your adventures. I like a 5-star hotel. No, for me, adventure is a journey of discovery. Yes, journey of discovery can be anything. That can mean anything. But I think with unusual, exciting, and/or daring experiences. There we are. That's my definition, as a picture thrown up on a different expedition to the highest point in Antarctica, and that really was cold, about minus 45 degrees centigrade. When you think your deep freezer is like 17, 18 minus 45, that's why you can't see any flesh. Anyway, a journey of discovery can be anything. We just happen to be tracking Shackleton's route on that famous expedition in 1914-16 in this picture. That didn't end well either, but that's another story. Something unusual. Well, I like playing penny farthing polo. Is that unusual enough for you? Hopefully. But honestly, it can be anything. Could be extreme jigsaws, Mark. Yeah, there you go. How about something exciting? What about a KTM 450 motorcycling across the sand dunes of the northern Sahara desert? Yeah, that's definitely exciting, isn't it? And I know there's a few motorcyclists in this room, so hopefully you like that picture. Well, daring. I know Harry's been to Ukraine. I've been to Ukraine 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years. Who else has been on holiday in Ukraine in the last 2 years? Oh, okay, yeah. So a friend of mine started a charity making pizzas and serving pizzas to displaced people near the fighting, all the villages and towns. So we've spent three trips making pizzas, near the action. And actually, you can see my blue dot. That's about 12 miles away from the front line there as we make margarita pizzas to the locals. So actually, they're really grateful. You can imagine them having a pretty torrid time as they are being shelled and so forth. So a little bit of love, support, and pizza, even if it's a boring margarita. Personally, I prefer Hawaiian, don't you, Harry? Yeah. You're lying. I know you like American hot, don't you? Pepperoni. Yeah, pepperoni, exactly. So how to be an adventurer? Well, for me, I think there are 6. Well, there's loads, but I've only got time to tell you that I think my top 6 would be traits of an adventurous mindset, i.e. what you need to think about in order to be an adventurer with some success and not kill yourself. Curiosity, courage, energy, enthusiasm. Sorry, madam. Resourcefulness. When things go wrong, and they will, as I will demonstrate in a few of my stories later, they can go really badly wrong. You need to be resourceful, and then finally, once you get through that, you've got to be resilient and show tenacity to see it through and keep going. And it reminds me of these traits in a little wee story. I was out for a normal kind of skiing week in Austria, and I got wind of the world's tin tray racing championships going on in the next door village, a place called Eagles. So being curious, showing some adventurous traits, I went to inquire. And they said, yeah, we're doing the World Championships ice tin tray racing. And, you know, you can have a day's practice, and then the following day we've got the World Championships, and you can enter if you like. Fantastic, why not? Bit of courage. Applied myself down the practice runs with energy and enthusiasm. Resourcefulness, well, I needed a tray. I had to go and ask the hotel chef for the largest tin tray he had and some olive oil. I thought that would make it slippery and quicker. And then, obviously, the first day was carnage. I was bashing into the walls. I hurt quite a lot by the time the actual race came, but I stuck to it. I was resilient, and I went back. And guess what? Guess who won the gold medal? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. No lie. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's it. I'm off. Thank you very much. Oh, no. So you want a few more stories. I also decided in my 20s that a life in front of an office computer screen was going to be rather dull, and I needed a proper challenge. So I decided that I would attempt a thing called the Seven Summits, the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents, which obviously included the big one, Mt Everest. And then when you put North and South Poles together with the 7 summits, you get a thing called the Explorer's Grand Slam. So that was quite exciting. And I just thought that would be a good counter to the dull, boring 9-to-5 job that I had at the time. And so that was my aim, that was my goal, that was my mission. And only 3 people at that point in the very early 1990s had done it, one of whom was Reinhold Messner, the greatest living climber that's ever lived. So I was in good company as I set off on this challenge. I love a bit of history. In the 20s, the Brits were leading force in trying to climb the mountain. Obviously, we weren't successful, we don't think, in the 1920s. And indeed, in 24, very sadly, a guy who's put his leg on one of the front rowers, George Mallory, a little bit of a hero of mine, and Sandy Irvine, they went for their attempt and they never came back. So really, really sad. And we'll never know probably whether they did or didn't make it to the top. I kind of like to think that they might have done. Well, my turn was to come in 1996. And of course, being a responsible now explorer and adventurer, I did my risk analysis. But what I discovered wasn't a great tonic. Certainly, I didn't show my mother. In the period 1922 to 1999, nearly 1,300 successful summits. 165 people, however, killed in those attempts. And that's stats. A fatality rate of 13.33%. Or, in other words, for every 6 or 7 people that successfully reached the summit of Everest, 1 statistically would die. Anyway, for me, that was good enough. So off we went, up through the western part of Nepal, well, actually eastern Nepal, but the western Coombe. And this is what the Khumbu icefall looks like. It's slightly terrifying. Lots of crevasses, lots of huge ice blocks, which actually it's a moving glacier, so it sometimes and mysteriously just collapses sometimes at the wrong moment. And many people, sadly, have been killed in this zone. However, you get above that, about 19,500 feet, and you're heading to Camp 2 and then 3 up the Lhotse face, and it starts to become really beautiful environment, lovely, with some really high mountains all around you, obviously with Everest. Lhotse, the 4th highest, and Makalu, and then Nuptse, the 7th highest mountain in your vista. Now looking down from Camp 3, you can see the way you've come up the valley from base camp. And of course you do an 8-hour climb to get here, and then you have to dig a ledge for your tent and then put your tent up. That takes another hour. So you're absolutely exhausted. Then the next day, you look to head to Camp 4, the South Col, the last campsite before you go for your summit bid. And you can see as I take this picture, conditions aren't looking great. I get to 8,000 meters, the South Col, the last campsite, Camp 4, and all hell's breaking loose. There's like a massive storm, and it's like 80-mile-an-hour winds. It's really impossible to get a tent up. It takes 50 minutes to get one tent up. But one of my Sherpas helps, and we eventually get it up, and the rest of the team dive in, and we spend a very miserable night surviving what was to become the worst storm in 100 years to hit the mountain. Talk about terrible timing. Well, you know, you may have seen some films of this episode, the next 48 hours, but some good people got badly injured and many lost their lives. 8 people lost their lives in the next 24 hours during this storm. I was lucky. I was in a tent, and you know, Beck was, you know, just made a poor mistake. You know, his team leader Rob Hall was heading to the summit late, and Beck was kind of starting to lose his sight, and he just decided to sit on his arse and wait for Rob Hall to come back down, but he never came back. And so, excuse me. And so he just sat on his arse until it was almost too late. And then, you know, there was a miraculous story. You might read it in Into Thin Air, the book John Krakauer wrote. And there have been plenty of like movies about this episode. But it was a poor time. Here are my tents at Camp 3, absolutely obliterated by the storm. And this is 3,000 feet below where I spent 2 days and 2 nights surviving this storm. The news hounds got hold of the story, obviously, very quickly. I mean, for 2 weeks, my mother didn't know whether I was alive or dead. Such was the poor communications during the day, and we lost some really talented and strong people. Rob Hall was a New Zealand climber. He climbed 5 times, but just pushed the limits, and then was very bravely decided to stay with one of his weaker clients. This being the commercial start of the commercialization of climbing Everest, and he lost his life as well. There was a lot of debate, you know, who to blame, why, how to prevent it happening in the future. For me, with my 6 expeditions to Mt Everest now, I would say too many people, not enough experience, and not enough collaboration between teams and between individuals on the mountain. So, for what it's worth. However, we talked about adventurous traits and an adventurous mindset, and that, of course, requires resilience to go back and not to give up too easily. And so 2 years later, I put another team on the mountain, which included some Charlies, some silly people, and we thought we'd go in this picture just before setting out to go have tea with the Americans. The Americans are so serious. And they never smiled, and they never joked, and they would never laugh, so we thought we would go and cheer them up, you know, the old British spirit. So old school ties, Union Jack boxer shorts, etc., to go to tea with the Americans. Anyway, it was back to business. Up we go through the icefall, getting quite high now, up onto the southeast ridge of Mt Everest, and I've ringed the tents at Camp 4, so we're really getting quite high, 28,000 feet or so. And you can see bundles of ropes to cling on to. You're basically climbing solo, but with, you know, putting your protection on whatever ropes you can find. I get to the south summit, and there's my climbing partner, Mick. And I'm focused on the summit now. We've got the southeast, the highest southeast ridge with the Hillary Step, named after Sir Edmund Hillary, who I was fortunate enough to meet once. And pretty much a stroll to the top of the world. So I started heading off towards the Hillary Step. We'd run out of rope, so it was like soloing now, taking very good care. One slip and you're 8,000 foot drop into Nepal, or a 9,000 foot roly-poly slide down into China, neither of which particularly appealed, to be honest. So I was placing my feet quite carefully and making sure I didn't make any mistakes. And then I looked round for moral support again. Pasang, my Sherpa, was there, but he was waving at me and basically, you know, come back. So I came back, retraced my steps. He said, no Mick, my climbing partner Mick. I forgot about Mick. He was nowhere to be seen. I was halfway to the Hillary Step. Went all the way back over the top of the back of the south summit, and there was Mick lying prostrate on the snow in what we joked earlier at base camp, the dying position. It was a bad joke, really. He was about to die. So what to do? Well, you never leave a mate behind, so we shoved him over. Pasang and I put an arm each over each of our shoulders, and we literally dragged him down from the south summit all the way to the balcony. Took us a few hours. And then this bit's steep, where the dotted line is too steep to do solo. He wasn't strong enough. So I asked the Sherpa, can you put a 3-foot length of short rope on Mick and just hold him? I'll direct from the top, left a bit, right a bit, let's have a rest, etc. And they were going down together. Pasang looked up to me, checked the line, yeah, keep going. Whilst he did that, Mick lost consciousness. He fell forwards, caught the Sherpa by surprise, 8 foot, 8 stone of him. Both of them now were tumbling away from me at a great rapid speed. Literally 1,000 feet where the dotted line goes, they fell in unison. I was totally shocked with horror and knowing that there was rocks everywhere, as you can see in the photograph. Surely they were dead. No helmets, together with crampons, ice axes flailing attached to their bodies. They got to the bottom of the couloir and they lay there motionless for 10 minutes as I made my way as quickly as I could down. An Iranian team came up from base camp. They saw them fall and went to help. As they arrived, I arrived, and I was terrified to see what I was going to find. But miraculously, Mick and Pasang, both groggy, bashed and battered and bruised and bloodied, but they had survived. And we then spent 3 days getting them back down to base camp. What to do then? Well, I had some thinking to do. I'd now spent 6 months on this mountain, quite a long time. Work was asking me when I was coming back. Harry, you know what that's like? It's pressure, isn't it? Pressure. Also, I was raising money for Great Ormond Street Hospital. I just thought about all the kids that my efforts on this mountain would be going to, all the funds that we would get, machines, etc., that we could earn if only I could get to the top of this wretched mountain. So, of course, I decided to have 2 pints of asparagus soup, a couple of Mars bars, and agreed the very next morning, 3 o'clock, I'd be heading back up the mountain for my 3rd attempt. The icefall didn't get any nicer or easier, but we got through it. And then got high again on the mountain. Lovely. This is Makalu, the 5th highest mountain in the world, looking quite small, which is what you want to see when you're trying to climb Everest. Other mountains being Titsi. We get to the south summit. I pass it and head towards the Hillary Step. Get to the top of the Hillary Step, and I realise I've got, frostbite. You kind of realise you can't feel your feet for a couple of hours. You probably think, okay, there's not much I can do about it now, so I'm going to keep going anyway. And when I got to Camp 2, I fell asleep in the sun. And ladies and gents, I have a medical world record. First person in the world ever to have frostbite and sunburn on the same part of the body. Yeah, thank you very much. Quite proud of that. I've still got my toes, by the way, just in case any ladies out there worried. Men never a worry, you can live without toes, yeah. This is what the Hillary Step looks like. This is a beautiful picture taken by Doug Scott, now no longer with us, of Dougal Haston. It's a fantastic picture. It's actually 2 pictures spliced together, but it's a non-fake apart from that, and it's just an unbelievable picture of the Hillary Step, the final hurdle to climb Mt Everest. And then what looks like a 20-foot jog to the summit is actually about 100 yards, 120 yards or more. I forget exactly, but something like that. It's a lot further than you think, and a bit steeper than you would like, to be honest. I thought I'd show you a little 1-minute video to show you. I can see a few people, potential Everest summiteers in the room. So just to help you make up your minds whether you're ever going to go for it, this is what it really is like.
We're sitting here in this shitty little tent that's got holes in it at 8,000 meters. we're already in what they call the death zone, which doesn't exactly inspire one with confidence.
So I got to the top. It was a hell of a relief, and just instinctively I got on the radio to base camp and said, we've run out of Earth. I thought that was quite cool. It just came out. This is a picture of our summit picture, if you like, with my summit partner, Bear Grylls. He became the youngest Briton to climb the mountain. He held the record for about 10 years, I think. And he signed the picture the other day, reinforcing my message of the adventurous trait of resilience. Never give up. And that was our celebratory picture. Now you're probably wondering, after all that, why somebody like myself manages to associate themselves with such ruffians, terrible behaviour like going naked on a sacred mountain, etc. Well, I thought I'd share briefly my journey to madness. Well, if I'm honest, I was pretty rubbish at school. It was in the era of the corporal punishment, and I was, shall we just say, extremely familiar with the cane. This wasn't, in fact, this is fake news. There's a different headmaster, but equally bullish. But this is a genuine school report from junior house. I don't know, I was 12 or 13. Geography, class 2B, not even the top set, last in everything. And general remarks, Glenn Robertson, my teacher, he said, and I quote, "Neil is trying very hard, but achieving very little." Thank you very much. That just about summed my school career up. What you probably don't realise is that geography was my very best subject. However, I had a pretty successful dad. Loved my dad. He was in the Navy, a commander. He was 2IC of this great ship, HMS Bulwark, the commando carrier. We had a wonderful 3 days at sea in the Solent. It wouldn't happen today. Young Harry here wouldn't get a chance. Too many rules and regulations. But in the day, Dad sent a helicopter to school, scooped up three of us, 2 mates and myself, and we spent 3 days at sea in the Solent. And it wasn't the Navy that I fell in love with. It was the Royal Marines who were doing all the exciting stuff, the unusual and the daring stuff, and the journeys of discovery in these helicopters, the Wessex 5, great helicopter. And they would go off all blacked up with cam cream, rifles slung over their shoulders, disappear for 3 hours on a mission, then come back. The ropes would come down 30 foot above the decks, the ship's moving, the commandos would whiz down the ropes and scurry off down into the ship to the bar, probably. And I thought, as a 12-year-old boy, that's exactly what I want to do with my life. However, I had a slight problem. I was kind of a sensitive, terribly badly academically failed child. And not only that, I was an ex-patient of Great Ormond Street Hospital to boot. How the hell am I going to get into the Marines? I'll tell you what, the adventurous mindset is exactly how I did get into the Marines. There we are. I thought I'd share with you the commando ethos, which essentially is courage. You've read that before. Determination, you've seen that before. Unselfishness, you haven't seen that, but that's a good trait to have. And this is a good one. Cheerfulness, but most importantly, in the face of adversity. You have those qualities. You too could be a Royal Marine Commando. There might be a few of you in the room who are. Salute you all. However, sadly, my beloved dad, died of cancer as I was in the first few years of my career in the Marines. And I lost my mojo, I lost my confidence, my self-esteem, took a knock, and it wasn't long before the powers that be decided that I wasn't fit to be a young officer in the Marines, and I was booted out, forced to go to London, buy a suit, and try and get a job. Wasn't really my thing, and I struggled, got fired, made redundant, and so on and so forth in quick succession. Kind of 2 or 3 years of real misery. And then I was saved by an extraordinary event. It wasn't actually the London Iranian embassy siege, but it was the 10-year anniversary of the Iranian embassy siege in London. And terrorists overtook the embassy, and then this secret organisation called the SAS stormed in under Maggie Thatcher and basically killed a few people, went down on ropes from the roof and liberated a whole bunch of people that were trapped in the embassy, being held hostage for quite a long time. And it was the 10th anniversary. We got wind of, those of us in London, young men in London, got whiff that this secret regiment was after a few more volunteers. Okay, so I said, let's go and volunteer. And blow me down, signed up with thousands of other young men down the New King's Road or the King's Road in the day. And we signed up for selection. You have to be selected, you have to be tested. And then this is me on selection. I know what you're thinking. That's a very large gun. Yes, it is. It's a GPMG machine gun. Highly deadly. But have you ever seen a pair of ears that big? Well, I got into the Special Air Service Regiment with some of these values. The never-ending pursuit of excellence, self-discipline, humility. I'm still working on that, to be honest. And humour. It's important when the chips are down to be able to smile, to laugh, to have a joke, crack a funny with your pals as the shit is hitting the fan. You get those qualities, and you too could be an SAS operative. And do some fun stuff. Who was the gentleman I was talking to? Parachuting with Parkinson's, if I may say. Absolutely, hats off to you, sir. What a great feeling, jumping out of a perfectly serviceable aircraft at low level, normally at night with heavy equipment and rifle strapped to your legs. Actually, it's terrifying, but I gloss over that. We used to do some fun stuff. This is called CTR, Close Target Reconnaissance, normally somewhere illegal. And just thought I'd throw in a couple of images for you. Abseiling, fast roping from Wessex 5 and other types of helicopters. And they teach you how to make bombs at Hereford and stuff like that. It's brilliant. Boys' own stuff. This is actually a picture. I took this photograph illegally. It's my first ever homemade bomb. Marvellous. I got in trouble, actually. 20 minutes later, the guardroom at Hereford got a call from Mrs. Milligan or somebody. She said her ceiling had fallen in. I think I might have taken a bit too much PE4 explosives on that one, my first ever, but there we are. Yes, you have to shoot straight as well. But the purpose of this photograph is just to say, never leave your mates behind. Come what may. Stand and shoot, stand and fire. You never leave a mate behind. Anyway, it can't last forever in the military, so I then switched back to business. Basically, I needed some money, to be honest. And having been hired and fired too many times, I decided I'd be an entrepreneur. I'd start my own company and start from scratch. We built a company up to about 40 million turnover, but doing kind of project interiors, commercial interiors, design, build, furniture, project management, that kind of thing. All good stuff, London and around the country. And, it was quite lucrative. We were reasonably successful. We had some interesting clients, including Broadmoor Mental... they used to call it the Mental Lunatic Asylum, Broadmoor. But nowadays, it's the Broadmoor Hospital, isn't it? But actually, back in the day, the Criminal Lunatic Asylum, we went inside, had doing a paint and decorating survey, and a man runs towards me in the inner sanctum, puts his shoulder down and heaves me into the wall. Wins me, cracks a rib, and we go round the corner and the senior psychiatric nurse says, "Neil, you really ought to be careful who you bump into in here." I said, "I know, he just ran into me. What can I do about it?" "Who the hell was that anyway?" "That's Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper," he said. Dangerous job, construction. Anyway, 10 years in, we were on our way, but then a terrible thing happened. A bloody client refused to pay 240,000 quid. could have sunk us, would have sunk us if we hadn't had an adventurous mindset. I decided that we would quadruple our sales ambition. So we were in the comfort zone of £250,000 projects. I said to the guys, let's go for £1 million projects. And within 5 weeks of that mission statement, we won our first £1 million project. That went on to be our first £10 million client. I'm sure some of you recognise this picture. It is indeed Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. And that was our £10 million first £10 million client. Fabulous, game changer. We then went on a few years later to win the biggest project in the whole of the United Kingdom at Heathrow Airport for British Airports Authority, a 20 million quid check. Fantastic. And at that point, the largest company in the industry of the construction world in UK, Balfour Beatty, who were building the Olympic Stadium at the time, knocked on my door and said, "You're making too much of a ripple in our pond. How much do you want for us to buy your company?" So I plucked a figure out the air. We spun a coin with my team. Sell or not sell, I lost, and we sold the business. This allowed me to go on and build some other small businesses. This is Laughton & Co. We help senior execs be better team leaders and players and manage and communicate. And this is a team of clients in the Navy's sinking ship simulator. That focuses the mind. I run the Penny Farthing Club, and there's Rolf, my 2IC in the Penny Farthing Club is here. Put your hand up, Rolf. Anyone wants to learn to ride a penny farthing, go around the circuit like we did the other day. Speak to Rolf afterwards. Wonderful fun, lots of opportunities there. In fact, tomorrow I'm with a YouTuber called Max Fosh, and we're going to do some silly stuff around London. The last time I did a 30-second video with him, to 19 million views. That's quite a lot, apparently. And I'm also I keep my hand in the construction world. I'm trying to bring to the market luxury floating homes. So if you see one of these in your neighbourhood, you'll know it's made by my good self and team. But at the end of it all, I love adventure and I love organising trips abroad. This is paddleboarding down a tributary of the Amazon River a couple of years ago. And again, as Harry kindly mentioned, it's normally for the benefit, subsidiary benefit of a charity, in this case, Prostate Cancer UK, which is more prevalent than you might think. If you're over 50 and you haven't had a PSA test, get one done next week. Some of the charities I like to work and have worked with, you'll recognise a few names. Some examples: British Exploring Society, we took 40 disadvantaged kids across the Sinai Desert. One went from east, the other team went from west. We met in the middle, had a drink of shandy, and then went our separate ways. That was fabulous. Of course, if you're going to be the first team to circumnavigate UK and Ireland on a jet ski, you're going to want the RNLI as your charity partner. Very sensible decision it was too, as we got rescued a few times. And then I love this one. This is before the Taliban retook Afghanistan. We were out in 2018, November, organising the first mountain marathon for young people in Afghanistan, including young girls, which previously and now are not allowed even outside to exercise. A tragedy. I'd like now to share with you probably my, well, I'd say greatest, certainly most challenging expedition of all the 50 plus I've done, as highlighted in the book Adventureholic, Amazon #1 bestseller, available after this talk. But chapter 3, you'll see this story of the madcap Skycar expedition. But it all starts with the Wright brothers, who, of course, abandoned their bicycle manufacturing shop to invent aviation as we know it today. And you guys will know it better than I. 17th of December, North Carolina. First flight, a couple of hundred yards. And that was the start of aviation as we know it today. My journey into flying and piloting started with hang gliders. Beautiful, like flying like an eagle. Hands up if you've flown a hang glider in the room. 1, 2, 2. Hands up, but it doesn't look like you're playing the game, sir. It's wonderful, but terrifying at the same time, I think. Move to paragliding and paramotoring. This is actually with Bear Grylls. We set a world record for the highest paramotor flight near Everest back in 2007. And I'd like just to share a little, get a glass of water in a second, just share with you, I think it's a nice little video, a few minutes long, of an expedition I organised for wounded soldiers from the charity Help for Heroes. And a lot of these guys, you know, were navigating with us in the trikes, the two-seater trikes. The rest of the guys were, you know, with PTSD, and they were in the support team. And so everyone got stuck in, and we had 3 of these trikes, and we were doing 1,000 kilometres from Mt Kilimanjaro to Mt Kenya, south to north, 1,000 kilometres through the Rift Valley, most beautiful part of the world in Kenya. And this is like a little summary video for you to enjoy. Thank you. Flying for Heroes. Thank you. It was a great project. I learned to fly helicopters. My greatest flying experience was in lockdown. I had a rich neighbour who owed me a favour. The favour was giving me a 20-minute flight in a World War II Spitfire. Absolutely fabulous. Goodwood. And going upside down, taking the controls and doing some loop-the-loops and barrel rolls in a vintage Spitfire was, without doubt, my most memorable flying experience, I think. But this story involves the world's first road legal flying car. Now, slight difference between the image I was sent by Giles Cardozo, the designer, to the one you've seen, the prototype outside. This is what brought me into the project. Cost me £150,000. I didn't have that kind of money, but I needed a plan, and I worked out a plan to get it. Meanwhile, Giles was making the prototype, as you can see, the one outside, and this was it. Our first maiden flight on Pendine Sands in Wales, lovely 7-mile long beach. And I promise you, as I was taking this for its maiden flight at 50, 100 foot, my buttocks were extremely tightly well clenched. This was the plan to raise 150,000, but actually it then cost another 150,000 to put this expedition. So in total it was £300,000 I was facing, definite remortgage or get some sponsors. So here was the plan. We go from London through Europe and then fly the Straits of Gibraltar and then come down through Morocco, Western Sahara, into Mauritania, turn right, and then do a 2,000-kilometre straight line north to south through Mali and the empty quarter of the Sahara Desert. Very few people had been to, certainly from a Western perspective. And we were raising money for a charity alive and kicking. 10,000-kilometre journey. It was to take us about 46 days non-stop to complete the journey. We left in January 2009. This is my team, including honorary patron Sir Ranulph Fiennes, who said to me, Neil, by email, this is mad, bad and dangerous enough for me to put my name to it as honorary patron. Thank you very much. Mixed bag of friends, adventurers and associates, including a trainee doctor. Couldn't persuade a real doctor, so a trainee would have to do. I left London with the team and support vehicles in January, I think it was, 2009. We made our way through Europe, and then the big challenge, flying the Straits of Gibraltar. Not as easy as you might think, with a prototype car that was prone to failure. It broken down a few times, and on my first attempt, I had a gust of wind and crash landed into the surf. Had to be dragged out, lost a day. Second attempt was absolutely terrifying. You'll see a little bit of that in some footage I'll show in a minute. But eventually the third attempt, never give up, resilience. Third attempt, I managed to fly successfully across the Straits of Gibraltar and landed illegally at a heliport in North Africa. But just quickly to share with you some challenges. We had the support truck, 32-ton man truck. That certainly got its fair share of sinkings in the soft, silky sand. We had to dig it out numerous times. There was definitely an Al-Qaeda threat that we had to be aware of and to take precautions of, useful special forces techniques of double tracking into your campsite, covering your tracks so that nobody knows you're there, etc. It was useful. But at the end of the day, it was a fly drive holiday, and I had an awful lot of fun fly driving this crazy flying car across large parts of the Sahara Desert. We had some amazing sights. Right in the middle of the empty quarter, we bumped into this fellow who was a Bedouin, and he was just simply walking casually across the 2,000-kilometre section of the desert with 3 camels and about 50 shoats, a cross between a sheep and a goat. And we did some bartering. He butchered the poor, wretched creature in front of us, stuffed it in its own skin, and we lobbed it in the back of the truck and then had an extremely good dinner that night in the middle of the Sahara Desert with some wine and popcorn, as I recall, with Gilo on the guitar. Now, you'll probably know, those who've been to the Sahara, there's not many trees in the Sahara Desert. Fabulous place though it is, not many trees. Well, why on earth did Gilo decide to crash into it? I'll never know. The wretched chap decided to take out that poor tree and distinctly damage the car in the process. However, the team were brilliant, and as I said, we worked for 46 days on the trot without a break, and they fixed it through the night, and it was back flying the next day. Approaching Timbuktu, our destination of choice, and really excited to come across other human beings after many weeks on our own. And when you cross the Niger River, you know you're very close to Timbuktu. And then it was a final flight into Timbuktu International Airport, which has about 1 or 2 takeoffs a week. And we doubled the traffic and a little bit of celebration time. And yes, I was a bit smelly, but I'd saved a proper bottle of champagne for the finish line. And I'm just going to finish tonight's talk with a little video with the highlights of this extraordinary journey across the Sahara Desert, which I hope you'll enjoy.
An ex-Marine officer and SAS soldier, Neil has led expeditions all over the world.
It was my idea to do a journey from London to Timbuktu, really to provide maiden flight for this aircraft and car.
Neil and his expedition head for Spain.
We still haven't really flown this machine. Frankly, we don't know whether it's going to work or not. You know, it is very different to flying a plane and a helicopter. I mean, it is an extraordinary piece of equipment. I come off the power and I'm sinking along, but we landed it. This is a really serious mission for any aircraft, let alone one that's a car about to take off on a beach in gusting 30-knot winds. That was really scary. It was uncontrollable. I was penduluming out towards the sea at about 50 foot. At one stage I climbed out to jump out. I would have lost the car at the end of the expedition. I'll give it one more takeoff and see how she feels. I head-butted the windscreen. The steering column on the wheel snapped and I burst a tyre. Apart from that, she was fine. What are you worrying about?
Neil Laughton is the first man ever to fly across the Straits of Gibraltar in a car. The expedition leaves Nouadhibou, leaving paved roads with any semblance of civilization behind them.
You just had to look left and right, and you'd see destroyed, burnt out and blown up vehicles. We're just negotiating to buy a goat so that we've got some food. This is a life, isn't it? Popcorn and a goat. We're just about to set off into the middle of the Sahara Desert. Not a great time to be getting the spanners out, to be honest. A pretty sorry state. Lobbed it on the back of Toby's truck. We still had a fair bit to go to reach our destination.
Oh, this is looking fantastic. Good shape.
I like your optimism, Brad.
14, 15, 16. It's still possible. I was going to push the bloody thing to Timbuktu if I had to.
Welcome, my friend. No, not Timbuktu. Yes, we're here.
Right, where do we get a beer around here? I don't know, alcohol seems to be it's a recurring theme, doesn't it, really? I'd hate to be teetotal. My pal Marcus, sorry. Little dig there. If you too want a flying car, you can have one as well. I'm not sure exactly what the retail price is now. It's a few quid. But this is the 6th generation of the Sky Car that we prototyped in that expedition in 2009. And really, I think that's the end of my talk tonight. I hope you enjoyed some of the stories. You've got a few options. You can go down after the talk and have a look around our adventure van with Mark. You can chat to Rolf about riding a penny farthing. And if you come for our weekend in October, as long as you can ride a penny farthing, I will send you away home at the end of a weekend with a Guinness World Record. Yes, that's my pledge. Or you could even, if you want to hear some more stories, I can only share a few tonight in an hour. All the stories are in my book, 15 quid, great present for anyone adventurous in your life. Or you could go to the bar. I'm not sure if you've got questions, but I'm very happy to answer a few. And then send you on your way home.
Yeah, definitely a few questions. I've got one, Neil, so sorry where you sort of have to ask this. How legal was the Sky car? We do know with the CAA and this type of thing. Was it, how legal was it?
Don't you hate people who ask boring questions? Totally illegal.
I did suspect that, because surely you needed like CAA approval to go flying or...
Yeah, so I left Gilo, the designer, to apply for the S-type special rating. It didn't get it, and so when we left in January 2009, it was an illegal aircraft to fly in the UK and also in France. So I didn't want to lose my licenses for helicopters and planes, so I was a good boy. I didn't fly in the UK, although a couple of times, like Wales, where you're not going to be discovered. But generally, we didn't fly in the UK and France, but in Spain and all through Africa. Anything goes, doesn't it?
Regulations a little bit looser. Anybody got any questions they'd like to go questions down here for you, Neil?
Did you ever wish to be lived in a different time, maybe 100 or more years in the past?
I'm just very pleased to be alive, sir, but great question. I'd love to have been in like Mallory's team. I'd love to have been in Shackleton's team. Loads of Victorian explorers of the day. I think I might have got into the odd opportunity, but no regrets. I just thoroughly enjoy coming up with a spark of an idea, persuading other good people to join me, and everyone's welcome on my next expedition, which is the world's highest bicycle ride next month, going to Nepal. The world's highest bicycle ride, yes. And Brompton have given me a titanium, very lightweight 7 kilo bike to carry to the top of a very tall mountain and then hopefully cycle down. What's your next expedition?
Thank you. Which is faster with this flying car? As on a wheel or as wheels?
Oh, very good question. The original car had an R1 engine, 1000cc motorbike engine. Yeah. So Gilo put a 1000cc engine in it, and it would probably do. I didn't test it particularly, but it probably would have done 130 miles an hour down the motorway if I'd been brave enough. Flying, the fastest we got to is probably 80 miles an hour downwind. A lot of drag, so not that efficient in the air. This is a 3/4 ton contraption, and as you saw in the video, it nearly cost me my life on a couple of occasions. It's like flying a brick, to be honest. The latest ones are brilliant. This thing is extraordinary. Lightweight, within the rules, legal, Harry. So you can buy this and not get arrested.
Another question here.
What did you say, or perhaps rather, what did you plan to say to anyone whose spouse or father had been seriously hurt or killed in one of your adventures?
Ooh, serious question to finish on. Clearly, I joke around, but I take the safety of my team and not necessarily myself, but my team very, very seriously. I've organised and led over 50 expeditions around the world on 7 continents by land, sea and air. And touch wood, nobody has come close to dying. And I intend to keep it that way.
Where do you get your inspiration for your adventures from?
Normally in a bar, sometimes in the shower, sometimes just talking to people about stuff and what they've done, inspired by other adventures, and then I try and think about what I'd like to do, maybe aligned or different or similar, and then put a little twist on it, like cricket, golf. I didn't have time to tell you about all the other silly escapades like paddling a bath across the Solent, paddleboarding around Easter Island in the Pacific, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I read Neil's book, and I'm ready to tell you that there was almost a point where reading it, because I enjoyed it so much I kept telling her, you never guess what Neil did. And I kept narrating the book to her as I went along. And all that sort of slightly more serious, right at the end, there's a section called 9 Lives and How to Lose Them.
No, how I lost them. To answer your question, sir, but I'm still alive, unless I'm a mirage.
He has literally come close to death on a number of occasions, and it was absolutely incredible that he's standing here in front of us. So I can absolutely highly recommend the book. It is fantastic. So, any other questions before we wrap up for the evening?
There's one at the back.
Where do you go on holiday?
My wife is really normal, and so we go on normal like holidays with the kids and the family. So next week it'll be the Caribbean for a week.